time for some brass facts. As the title implies, I'm going to be talking about 18-inch barreled rifles, specifically AR-15s and 5.56 in 2020. Still a thing? If you're new to the firearms community, this statement might seem a little bit odd, especially when AR pistols are all the rage nowadays. But for anyone that's been around for a while, specifically since the last gun scare and before that, you'll know that 18-inch SPR or special purpose rifles inspired builds were the bee's knees back then. Everyone wanted them. Everyone I know wanted a rifle greater than 16 inches with a DMR-esque setup ready to take out targets at any range. And this isn't even just as a niche long-range system with a specific round. This was most of my friends' primary do-it-all rifle, their generalist rifle. They had chrome-line barreled FMJ ammo, not some niche dedicated sniper system, which is a completely different can of worms I don't want to discuss here today. While certainly usable, I think the average knowledge and experience level of the tactically minded gun owner has increased drastically since then. And since most people weren't using the 77 grain OTM ammo, and honestly weren't even shooting the round the gun was 0 I think a lot of what people expected out of their 18-inch guns failed to manifest. You add tons of pictures of special operations dude kicking down doors with Mark 18s in the GWAT, and the advent of SIG pistol braces, which made short rifles much more accessible, and you kind of saw a rapid shift towards more handy short barrel rifles, with longer barrel setups being considered overkill. Nowadays, I find it super rare to see someone with a long barreled AR setup. They're considered cumbersome, and you're not a cool kid if you don't have a short rifle. So that brings us to the topic of the video. Obviously, this is my take on the situation, and you should just read it as that, a slightly hungover dude rambling on the internet. Barrel length affects performance of the round, and this is a very complicated topic. If this interests you, I'd go do your own research. Doc GKR is a wealth of knowledge on the topic. Just Google his name and you'll find some really interesting stuff. Alright, let's get started. 18-inch SPR setup in 2020. I kind of view 18-inch barrels as the other end of the coin to short barrel setups, with both being niche firearms, though arguably short-barreled rifles may be a slightly larger niche. So to understand if 18-inch barrels are for you, you kind of need to understand the dynamic of short-barreled setups. Short-barrel setups are certainly handy, in a lot of ways kind of mandatory if you want to suppress your rifle for a tactical kind of assaulter setup, because of both overall length requirements and being ridiculously front-heavy with a suppressor on a longer rifle. They're not even that bad at range, technically, as short barrels, contrary to belief, actually increase accuracy. The main issue is velocity, or basically terminal ballistics. That is the effectiveness of the bullet to do the killing thing when you actually hit something. For 5.56, the key marker for lethality is its velocity. It's a very small bullet. I'm not going to go into depth on it because, quite frankly, I'll just be regurgitating what much smarter people in the field say. But roughly 26 to 2700, or even in some cases 2500 feet per second, is the critical threshold for FMJ to consistently fragment, tumble, whatever, on contact with the human body, which creates devastating results for such a small round. Below this threshold, you get a steep fall off of the effectiveness of the cartridge. And much of the point of 5.56 is lost at this point. For short rifles, this critical velocity happens at around 50 to 100 yards, roughly, depending on how short your rifle is and obviously the round used. So in short, the usage of a short-barreled rifle, needs to be done with the overall conscious acknowledgement that you're trading the effectiveness of your bullet at beyond 100 yards for overall length. So what does this overall length get you? In my personal opinion, a lot of people seem to believe that 16-inch rifles are unsuitable for CQB. And while this may or may not be true depending on your comfort level and your spatial awareness, I think the fact that 14.5 M4s, which are much longer, and similarly sized Mark 18s with suppressors have been used to drop baddies in the GWAT with no issues. Plus my own experience in tight environments makes me think this is kind of vastly overstated. So if you're not suppressing and you don't have some other ulterior overall length requirements, and the CQB limitations are kind of overstated, what's really the point of a short-barreled rifle? I'd say why not get all the extra velocity I can with a 13.7, a 14.5, or a 16-inch rifle, with the first two obviously being pinned for legal issues. In my opinion, these are probably better generalist rifles when you think about it. Obviously, most people will not be engaging at ranges where short-barrel rifles lose their effectiveness, but if I'm not suppressed, why not take this extra speed? And you kind of see this in the military community, especially the special operations community, which tends to be a little more forward-thinking, with the free-floated Geisley rifle being purchased in bulk with variable powered scopes and free-floated barrels when running unsuppressed. And this isn't even mentioning the added rail space and ergonomics you get when using a longer rifle. So anyway, we've kind of gone off topic for a little bit. Back to the topic at hand. What do you get with an 18-inch rifle over a generalist rifle, such as the 13.7 or a 16-inch rifle that I just hyped up? You're getting about 70 to 150 feet per second, depending on which barrel length, which is simultaneously not much at all, but also quite a fair bit. This is about the velocity gain you get from upgrading from a shorter rifle to that generalist rifle length I mentioned earlier, that 16 inches. Within metro areas, that slight gain in window will probably not materialize at any point, or very rarely. However, at extended ranges in like mountainous areas, you preserve your terminal ballistics while simultaneously having a slightly flatter shooting rifle. For people that live out in the Midwest, you kind of get these ranges quite frequently. Once you get familiar with your rifle, this gain is noticeable. So while I would argue this isn't really a general purpose rifle, this does give you some nice added capability, especially if you're reasonable about it and run a fairly light barrel. And this is for a very small marginal increase in overall length compared to that generalist package I was talking about. Maybe taking a step back here, remember, life isn't really in dealing in absolutes, and as long as you stick with a 10.5 and above, everything is on a slider, and you should look at where on that slider you want your performance and where you want to give up on, and specialize in. At the end of the day, this is really such a minor factor compared to just getting rounds on target, and if you can do that, this is just a cool conversation on the side. But honestly, like most red-blooded Americans, it's fun to have specialized rifles and have more than one AR specializing in different fields. And on that topic, I think we'll start seeing a push away from AR pistols for non-suppressed use, kind of back towards that 13.7, 14.5, and we're kind of already seeing this right now. Anyway, I'll be covering this rifle more and more in the coming months, and expand my personal philosophy on it. Anyways, I hope you enjoyed my rant, and you're doing well. Have a nice day.